ladies and gentlemen. Williams Wrestling Rewind here. I'm going to give you the results and my thoughts on AEW Double or Nothing last night. Double or Nothing was a great show. I liked it. It was the better show out of Saturday night's main event. That's really not a shocker there. When AEW did do these pay-per-views, sometimes they're a little long, too match heavy on the card. Sometimes we had 9, 13, 14, 10 matches. I kind of wish Tony Khan would get a sweet spot for maybe like 8 to 10. And instead of starting at 8 p.m. and it goes off at like 12, 12:30 at times, kind of wish he'd started like at 7, but I'm not in charge of AEW, so I could just give reviews and watch it and give you my take on the AEW product. So we're going to start with the buy-in show. We had Renee Paquette, and she announced that Mick Foley is All Elite Wrestling. Mick Foley has signed with the company. That is a good get for AEW. I could see him doing interviews and kind of like a Renee Paquette for the pre-shows and all the pay-per-views, do like that. Some people say maybe he's going to wrestle a match or take a bump. I don't know. I don't know about that. I would like to see Mick kind of do the role he did on Sunday and everything. That would work for me. Mick Foley is great. Glad to see him in AEW. And this was the first match on the buy-in. We had Divine Domination versus Viva Vane and Zeta Steel. That was a okay match. It's not too out of the anything that you got to go see. And Divine Domination, they picked up the win under 5 minutes. And then our first match of the night was FTR versus Cage and Adam Copeland. If Christian Cage and Adam Copeland lost, they would have to retire as a tag team. And the match was a I Quit street fight. So going into it, I knew Christian Cage and Adam Copeland were not going to lose. And it was chaotic. We had a not barbed wire. We had a spiked 2x4 with nails in there. We had chairs. We had steel steps. We had a belt. And I'll get more into this when I cover the 14-man stadium stampede match. There was no blood or fighting in the crowd because they were up in New York, and the New York community board, they told Tony Khan, like, okay, you're here, no blood or no fighting through the crowd. So that's why we didn't see no blood, and it's not the first time we did not see blood on a AEW pay-per-view. When they had I forget what pay-per-view it was last year, when they were in St. Louis, there was absolutely no blood at all. So some states are like that. Some states are, you can't bleed, you can't fight in the crowds, and other ones you can go all balls to the walls. So this one was not a we got no blood on this pay-per-view. So once I read that after, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. So Adam Copeland Cage won. Your regular tables, chairs, belts, barbed wire chair, ladders were brought into play. They slammed them on the announce table. And then Beth Phoenix came out. She beat up Cash Wheeler and Dax Harwood. And then Dax, he shoved Beth Phoenix right into the stairs. Luckily, she was okay. I thought she caught her. I thought she caught her shoulder. She caught the side of her head, but she was fine. And then they had a table outside the ring, and then they put the lighter fluid on it, and they were just drowning that poor table. I'm like, you might as well just unscrew the top and just drown the table more. And then they lit the table on fire, and then Stokely Hathaway was up on the apron. And then Cash Wheeler, I think Copeland or Christian just threw Cash Wheeler right into I just said his name. I had a brain moment here. Stokely Hathaway, sorry about that. So Stokely Hathaway and Cash Wheeler went through the flaming table, and Dax Harwood got back into the ring, a spear, low blow, and Cope and Christian defeated FTR to win the tag team titles. That was a very hot start to the pay-per-view. And then we go into match 2. It was for the AEW International Champion, Okada versus Takeshita. This was match of the night. It was very good, very back and forth. We had no interference. Okada went to, I think he went to pile drive or tombstone Takeshita, either on the announce table or on the outside. But Don Callis came over and he was talking Okada out of it. And Okada obliged, and they went back into the ring. They hit their finishers. Okada, he went for Rainmaker a couple times in the beginning. He could not hit the Rainmaker because Takeshita countered. And then by the end, Takeshita, he hit his finishing move. And he beat Okada for the International Championship. I was actually surprised about that. I was going for an Okada retain. But after the match, Don Callis family, Mark Davis, Okada got back into the ring and see what shenanigans was going to play out. And Okada was like, "Nope, I'm good. Nothing." But we hear a returning Kyle Fletcher. He came out. I was kind of surprised to see Kyle Fletcher. And Kyle Fletcher and Takeshita, they embraced, they hugged. We haven't seen Takeshita in several months. He was nursing an injury, so it's good to see Kyle Fletcher back. I like Kyle Fletcher. The future is very bright for that young man. And then why the Don Callis family kind of had their backs turned, and everybody thought it was good between Fletcher and Takeshita. Kyle Fletcher, he kicks Takeshita right between the legs. And that was surprising because I thought Fletcher was going to do that to Okada and turn, but apparently not. So Kyle Fletcher is still in the Don Callis family, and Okada and Mark Davis and Callis, they got Takeshita back up, and Kyle Fletcher took the AEW International Champion. He was looking at it right there. I thought he was going to attack Okada, but he didn't. He squared off and he hit Takeshita square in the head with the belt. So I could see them maybe at Redemption or All In at Wembley Stadium in August, set up a match between Takeshita and Kyle Fletcher. That would be a phenomenal match. I would totally like that. And that's how that match and the extracurricular activity ended. And then we go to our third match of the night. We have Athena versus Mina Shirakawa. I wanted Mina to win to advance in the Owen Hart Women's Championship tournament, but Athena won, and Athena advances to round 2 in the women's tournament. This match was good. Athena's great in the ring. Nothing over the top, but I still don't know why Athena ain't on a Dynamite more. She's just, I want to say toiling, but she's just spending too much. Yeah, she's the AEW Women's Championship in there, but has that ever stopped Ring of Honor talent before to hold champions and be on AEW? Not really. So Athena won that. She's going to advance to see who is going to challenge Athena in round 2. And we get a rematch between Jon Moxley and Kyle O'Reilly for the AEW Continental Championship. These two fought on Dynamite for the Wednesday before Double or Nothing, and that went to a 20-minute time limit draw. So, I did announce it was, let you know, okay, no time limit. So it was no time limit. So it was back and forth between Moxley and O'Reilly. O'Reilly, he was getting the upper hand of Moxley, but Moxley, he targeted the left leg of Kyle O'Reilly. He had that tied up in the ropes, and he worked over that, and it went back and forth a little bit. And then Moxley, he beat O'Reilly to retain the Continental Classic. So I don't know what's going to happen next for Moxley. So see who he's going to fight and go from there. And the next match of the night was Samoa Joe versus Will Ospreay. I thought this was going to go a little longer, but it didn't, and that's okay. They gave these two men enough time, I believe. Will Ospreay was victorious over Samoa Joe right out of the gate. Will Ospreay, he hit the hidden blade, and he only got a 2, and then he hit the rights and the lefts and elbows, and then Joe countered them. They went back and forth. Will Ospreay threw Joe into the turnbuckle, and Joe countered into Uranagi. And Joe only got a 2 from that, and then Ospreay was fighting back. He hit a 450 armbar to Samoa Joe. I mean, that was anything Will Ospreay does in the ring when it becomes high flying or anything. Will Ospreay is just a crazy person. He hit the hidden blade 2 more times, and then they took it to the outside of the ring, and then Joe had Ospreay in the Katia, his submission he does, and then he just flung Ospreay right into the guardrail, and then he took him back in the ring. He had him in the chokehold again, but Ospreay was able to get to the ropes, and then Ospreay was starting to build up momentum. Joe, he chopped him and he kicked him. Ospreay went down on the mat. He sat up. Joe kicked him. Ospreay was slapping the mat. He sat up again, and then it was all Ospreay from there. He hit the hidden blade. Joe kicked that at 1. Ospreay got up again. He took the elbow pad off and said, "This is enough." He hit the hidden blade again, and he pinned Samoa Joe. And Will Ospreay is advancing to the second round. And then we had Swerve Strickland versus Bandido. Some people say the Okada and Takeshita match was match of the night. In my honest opinion, Swerve Strickland and Bandido was match of the night. This was absolutely good. I loved it. Bandido is such a great talent. You're not going to get a bad match with him. And when Swerve Strickland's in the ring, it is super, super hard for him to have a bad match. It was just back and forth. Swerve Strickland was working over the head and the neck, shoulder region of Bandido. They took it to the outside. Bandido was in control. He hit a suicide dive. He tried for a couple other ones, but Swerve countered. There was one spot in here that I really loved. Bandido was going. He was going for. I forget what he was going for, but Swerve ran the ropes. he stood on top of Bandido's shoulders for like 2 to 3 seconds, and then he didn't jump, but he kind of just pressed his feet enough off of Bandido's shoulders and just hit the house call kick. And just seeing that was speechless. I was That's what you get in a AEW pay-per-view or watching these superstars. You will get breathtaking moments in here, and that was one of them. And that only got a 2 count, shockingly. And then Bandido, he went to go for the 21 plex. He hit a version of the 21 plex, but when he hits the 21 plex, he'll snap it off into a suplex, and he couldn't hold it because his shoulder was hurting him, so he had to release it. And Swerve, he hit the Swerve stomp, and then Bandido kicked out of that. And Swerve, he hit another Swerve house call kick, and he won the match with the house call kick. So I'm glad that Swerve doesn't always have to rely on the Swerve stomp. He can win the match with the house call. So that was really, really great. And Swerve is advancing to the second rounds of the Owen Hart men's tournament side. And then we had the women's AEW championship match. We had Thekla versus Shida versus Statlander versus Hayter. Thekla retained the AEW Women's AEW World Championship. It was a good match. It was all back and forth for a while. Statlander and Jamie Hayter were brawling in the ring. Shida came off Thekla came off the top rope for a crossbody, but Statlander and Hayter caught her, and then Shida came with a drop kick and wiped everybody out. And then all 3 women were on the outside of the ring, Shida, Statlander, and Hayter. And then Thekla did a diving crossbody off the top rope to wipe everybody out. And then Statlander had, I think, Thekla or Hayter in a submission, and Shida came up behind Statlander and just hit her with the kendo stick right from behind. And that was kind of wasn't expecting that, but both of them are kind of been brawling for a while. And Thekla hit the stomp on Statlander for the pinfall, and Thekla retained. It was a solid match between all 4 women, and I did not see Thekla losing the women's championship. She will walk into All In as the AEW Women's World Championship, I believe. And then we have the Stadium Stampede match. I'm sorry about earlier. I called it Anarchy in the Arena. Stadium Stampede. This was just absolutely crazy between all of them. You had Jericho, the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, Jack Perry, Shelton Benjamin, Bobby Lashley against Ricochet, Lee Moriarty, Khan. We had David Finlay, Kirk Connors, Andrade Idolo, and Mark Davis. Trying to take notes from this was absolutely crazy. The match was just all over the place. They were in the ring, they were backstage in catering, they were in the parking lot at one time. So Team Ricochet, some of them came out in baseball uniforms. Ricochet had a baseball jersey on and pants, and Bishop Khan and Tony Leone had baseball jerseys too, and Davis and Finlay of the Dogs, they just had their regular gear on, and Davis and Andrade just had their regular gear on. But Team Jericho had they had all fancy, good-looking suits. Lashley and Benjamin just had a regular black suit. Jericho had a bedazzled suit, and the Young Bucks had a tasseled Young Bucks edition suit, and Kenny Omega just had a basic suit, just like how Lashley and Benjamin did. It was 7 against 7. We had chairs, we had tables, no ladders. We had a Jack Perry hit somebody with a vacuum bag, and just dust went all over the place. It was just crazy. I've never seen a vacuum bag get used as a weapon before in wrestling, but there's a first time in everything. And Jericho got a bag underneath the ring, and it was filled with something. I thought it was croquet balls or apples, because that was used before in these type of matches. But it was tennis balls, and Jericho suplexed Ricochet on the tennis balls. That had to hurt. And then moments later into the match, Jericho received a suplex on the tennis balls also. And then we took it backstage in catering between Lashley, Benjamin, Jack Perry, Khan, Tota Leona, Ricochet, and Mark Davis. And then they were back there for 30 seconds later, and I think it was Davis or Andrade pushed Satnam Singh right into his food, and his food was just all over his face and everything. So he wasn't too happy about that, and that escalated into a giant food fight. And then Jericho and Ricochet and a couple of other members were backstage with Lashley and Benjamin. And Ricochet and Jericho were backstage to this like kind of half a soccer court or tennis, they were backstage with some kind of court area. And then Ricochet was hitting Jericho with a tennis racket. And then Jericho found a tennis machine. He started throwing tennis balls at Ricochet. And then we see Luther come out of one of the doors. He handed Jericho this ginormous tennis racket, and he just started to waylay and Ricochet with it. And then Bobby Lashley and Ricochet, I think they were fighting Khan and Leona backstage, or Finley and Connors. And then some poor bystander was sitting on a stretcher, and just Lashley just he just threw that guy to the side like yesterday's garbage. And that poor guy, he didn't see that coming. And then Lashley was down on the ground. He's looking over to his right, and then he just sees Blackheart, Leo Rush just possessed like Gollum, like, where's the ring? And then Lashley's like, I don't want none of this guy. I'm out. And then Leo Rush, he was chasing Khan and Leon. And then we took the match back to the ring. Excuse me. And then there was tables set up all on the outside. Young Bucks hit a splash through the tables through to Finley and Khan. Took Connors and Finley through the table by the Young Bucks. And then Kenny Omega, he sent, I think, Ricochet or Davis through the table. And then Jericho got involved going through the table too. And then later on in the match, Davis, he was walking backstage he went to the parking lot. He was looking for Jack Perry. But before that, I forgot to say, when they were in catering, Davis, it was a chair that was kind of like, it was tipped over, so the leg, it was just a regular metal chair that they use for catering that doesn't fold up. And the legs were just up, and then Jungle Boy Jack Perry, he dropped toe hold Davis, and he caught it somewhere straight in the eye, because about 5 to 6 minutes later we see Davis in the parking lot, and he has his eye all bandaged up. So I hope that's not serious for him, because he is the AEW national champion. And then there was like this destroyed old beaten up car. It had a note on the seat, and he read it, and then we just hear this loud honking of the Jungle Express bus. Jack Perry drove the bus straight into that car, and Mark Day he got out of the way, thank God. But that was crazy. And then we had all the competitors in the ring finally. They were Team Ricochet. Those guys were going down one by one by Team Jericho. And then Ricochet was in the ring with all 7 members of Team Jericho. They gave him their finisher, and they tried giving him super kicks, but he threw Ricochet out of the ring, and Khan took a 7 super kick combo, and Team Jericho gets the winning pinfall. That was a crazy match. It was chaotic. It was all over the place. If they weren't in New York, and if they could actually use certain weapons and go through the crowd and bleed, I would not doubt that they would have. And then we had our main event of the evening, Darby Allin and MJF for the AEW World Championship. This was a great match. I enjoyed it. Darby Allin, right out of the gates, he went for a side headlock takeover pinfall twice on MJF to see if he can get the quick pin. MJF countered that. He scurried out of the ring. He said, "Not for me." And right out of the gate, we get a diving Darby Allin going about 900 miles an hour. And as soon as he hit this, he hit the dive, it was going downhill from there for Darby, because he ran. And of course, I still don't know why these guys want to dive where the announce table is. I don't think none of them has learned their lesson watching J.D. McDonough. So Darby Allin, he goes off the ropes. He goes through the ropes where the announce tables are, and his heels just clip the top of the rope just enough, so when he lands, he's landing the back of his head and the back of his shoulders went crack. And they showed that. I'm like, well, that's not good to start the match off. So MJF capitalized on that like any heel would. He threw him into the steps, worked over him more. And then Darby, he laid MJF out on the apron. He went trying to go for a coffin drop, but MJF moved out of the way, and Darby Allin went splat right on the apron. And then MJF, he was working on Darby Allin's arm. He was trying to go for the heat seeker. It did not work. And then they took it up the ramp. And then there was a table set up with a clipper on it. They moved that out of the way. He laid MJF on the table, and Darby Allin looks up. What does he see? He sees the structure of the AEW Double or Nothing set. So what's he thinking? I must climb this. So he climbs it. He does a coffin drop through the table, hits MJF. Both men are worse for wear. Darby a little more. They get back into the ring. Darby, but I think it was before the coffin drop through the table. MJF, he was standing in front of a cameraman, and Darby went to go dive again, but MJF pulled the cameraman, and he just wiped out that poor cameraman. So he had to get help taking him to the back. And then both men get back into the ring after the table spot. The referee was distracted. MJF got a low blow by Darby Allin to see if he can get the pinfall. but it was only a 2. And then MJF, he hit a avalanche pile driver from the top rope. No, I think it was a second rope. Sorry. He hit a second rope avalanche pile driver, and he went over to Darby, pinned him. 1, 2, 3. MJF is your new AEW World Heavyweight Champion for a third time. Going into that match, did I have any expectation of MJF losing his hair? I did not. It would have changed a little bit, but my thing was I knew MJF was going to win all along. I thought after the match, MJF was going to celebrate, and he was going to look over at the Clippers, and he was going to pick them up, go to the ring, and shave the rest of Darby Allin's head. All the hair he had left, he has very little to begin with, so Darby Allin could have been bald, but that's not what it was. And then they stretchered Darby Allin by ringside. MJF stood over him just like he did Hangman Adam Page. And we see Kevin Knight come out. Kevin Knight came off to get MJF away from Darby. And then they were starting to wheel Darby away. Kevin Knight, he went to the rope to kind of make sure MJF wasn't going to try anything sneaky. And then Kevin Knight, he hit a splash on Darby Allin strapped to the stretcher. So Kevin Knight is a heel. So what is that going to mean for Darby Allin going forward? And what is that going to mean for Speedball Mike Bailey? So overall, I give Double or Nothing a thumbs up, a 10 out of 10 show. I enjoyed it very heavily, and I hope everybody enjoyed watching the live stream we did for Double or Nothing and checking this video out. I thank you, and please subscribe to us for more content. I enjoy doing this, and I will see everybody later. Take care, everybody. Thank you.